I sat there and I applied for jobs for maybe an hour or two. And then I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this. I don't want to go and work for somebody else again. I mean, if I was working for somebody else, I'd be fine. But like, I just knew I felt this calling to start my own business. And I knew if I didn't take this opportunity to do it now, it was going to pass me by and I was going to find myself in another job as the person behind the person, supporting someone else in achieving their dream. And I was never going to achieve my own.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. It is another great day. Have a great day. And I need you to follow this podcast so people like Kelly show up on your feed and you get super excited about it. So do me a favor, go ahead and follow. If you already are, share it with a friend. Today, we have a fabulous guest with us. We have Kelly Schuknecht. She is so many cool things. She is a chief elevation officer and has her own personal brand, but she's a personal brand expert, which is even more fun. She's a ghostwriter. She lives at the 2 mile high mark, legitimately the highest point in Colorado. She has 3 kids, 20, 18, and 16, and 3 dogs, one of which is a puppy sleeping behind her right now. She's an avid reader, and today she's our guest on Productive Joy. Kelly, welcome.
Wow, Christie, that was such a great intro. Thank you. And thanks for having me on.
It's so much more fun. I don't know about you, but it is so cringeworthy when I'm on a podcast and they read my bio and I'm like, oh, that just sounds gross. So that's why I do it this way.
Love it. Love it.
Well, and I had the privilege of being on your podcast. So thank you for that. And now you get to be on mine. And we're going to talk all about productive joy today. But what would you say in like 30 seconds or less that would make people go, oh my gosh, yes, this episode's for me?
Oh, what would I say in 30 seconds or less? So, in 30 seconds or less, man, Christy, that's good.
Sorry.
Probably already used up my window there. I would say, so I am a believer in betting on yourself. I was the person behind the person in my career for 20 years. And a big part of my story is stepping into the spotlight when it felt really, really foreign to me. And so I want to share that message with people that if they're feeling that call, it's time to do it.
I love it. The person behind the person. So tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you start when you were that person behind the person?
Yeah. So I was really good in that role of being the person who helped an entrepreneur, a thought leader, a visionary accomplish all of their goals. I actually remember my first job. So I was in a job for 10 years where I was in publishing, and it was a small publishing company, family owned, and my boss, he told me everything you touch turns to gold, and I didn't get that. Like I'm like, okay, I'm just doing my job, right? I don't understand that. And I just continued to do everything behind the scenes, right, for him to grow his company, to help him accomplish his goals. And I was just good at that. I was good at like not having anyone looking at me. I was just doing my job, heads down behind the scenes. And I left that company and I went to work in marketing, and I had another, long-term 7-year job working in marketing. Very similar thing though, where I was elevating my boss and helping him get the speaking events to get exposure and helping him write and publish his books and helping him, just establish that thought leadership platform and really become known as the thought leader in his space. And I won't say nobody knew who I was. I had a bit of a network, but for the most part, everyone knew who he was, right? And my network was small. I was just behind the scenes. And I was laid off. I don't know how much we went into that on my podcast, Christy, when you were my guest, but I was laid off on October 31st last year. It's almost been a year. I like to say that I did my job too well because I helped my company grow from 4 million to 12 million. And then we were acquired, and the acquiring company was like, we don't need you anymore. And I was like, it was interesting.
Dang it.
Yeah. So it was October 31st. It was a Thursday. That Friday, I was like, all right, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to apply for every job I can possibly find, and I sat there and I applied for jobs for maybe an hour or two. And then I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this. I don't want to go and work for somebody else again. I mean, if I was working for somebody else, I'd be fine. But like, I just knew I felt this calling to start my own business. And I knew if I didn't take this
Mm.
opportunity to do it now, it was going to pass me by and I was going to find myself in another job as the person behind the person, supporting someone else in achieving their dreams. And I was never going to achieve my own. And so literally by Monday morning, I was like, I'm starting to work on my company. And I started on day one, like just talking to everyone I possibly could to like figure out what my direction was going to be. And within 2 weeks, I registered my business. And here I am in under a year, I have a team of 10 people. Yeah, it we grew really fast. And I think a big part of that was just like I was ready. It was the
Yeah.
time.
Well, you'd put in the reps, right? Like this wasn't the first time that you had done some of these things. It's the first time you had done some of these things for yourself.
Right.
So I want to back up because you said something about just. And I think we do this all the time, right? We
Yes,
say, I
what did
am
I
just, you're not just. And how cool that you spent 17 years ish. I'm sure there were some things in between, but 17-ish years building your chops so that you would be able to
Yeah.
venture out on your own. I mean, it's really impressive in under a year to have 10 employees and to be at this point in your career where you're saying, let me help you become this really great thing. So, if you had to give me a synopsis of what your company does for people, all those years of practice, what does your company do for people?
Yeah. So, I mentioned in those first early days, like I was trying to get my head around what I was going to do exactly. I thought I was going to start a fractional CMO company. I just struggled with that at the beginning because I kept, you see the people on LinkedIn all the time. I'm a fractional whatever, fill in the blank, right? And I had been talking with people and they had been saying, "Well, we hired this fractional CMO and we didn't really get what we needed out of it." I was just hearing like these things that were making me feel like most people don't need not that they don't need strategy. Of course you need strategy, but smaller companies don't need this overarching strategy so much as they need like this tactical steps of what do I need to do right now to accomplish my goals. And
Mhm.
that was I believe I call it my authority X factor. That was my authority X factor. I knew how to create those tactical steps and how to basically like figure out what those KPIs are. What are those things that we need to be doing every week, every month, every quarter, whatever, that we can measure that is going to help us accomplish that success that we want? So that was the intro into what I decided was to then take my experience in publishing, my experience in marketing, and to create a service package, which I call the Speaker Elevation Plan, where we help thought leaders who want I should say, business owners who want to establish their thought leadership platform. They are thought leaders, but they kind of just need that person behind the person, right? That's
Right.
helping them establish that platform. They're busy. They don't have time to look for speaking events and to develop content that's going to capture their target audience's attention on LinkedIn. So we help them with pitching them to speaking events, booking podcast interviews, and then we do their LinkedIn management. So we do the posting for them and can do, some of the outreach and stuff for them. So that helps them grow their audience on LinkedIn. It helps them establish their platform. So if we're applying for an event for them for speaking, when somebody looks at them on LinkedIn, they see this polished platform that helps them support who they are online.
Which is so great. Okay, so I've been kind of in this space as a speaker for, I guess, going on 5 years. And I can't tell you how many scammy, yucky
Mm.
solicitations I get a day from people claiming to do exactly what you just said. I would hire you in a heartbeat over that, where they forget to put your name in and it says hello, insert name,
Oh.
or all the things. And so I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing. And I think you hit the nail on the head. You said they already have a thought leadership idea. They're thought leaders. They need the platform. They need to get people where they need to go. So how do you find your humans? I mean, you're hopefully going to get a few from just being on here today, but how do you match up? Because you're probably not sending those really gross things.
No, I don't do any outbound. I actually am very curious about outbound, but I've never been an outbound marketer. It's all inbound networking. I just happened to be really fortunate that I was part of a community I actually, so there's a community called the Bureau of Digital, which is for marketing agencies or creative agencies. And I happen to be a part of that. I actually reached out to them right away when I started my business saying like, can I join? Is it weird to join when I have zero clients? Right. And like that felt really weird to me. I was like, I'm saying I'm an agency, but I don't actually even have a client. But right away, within like a week, somebody within that community said, is there anyone who can help people find speaking events? And I was like, I can.
Yeah.
And it was like that moment that I created the package that we have, right? That I was like, okay, I can help with this. And then, the next week there was another person asking about it. And I knew people within the community. So then people were going, oh, I'm interested in what you're doing. Most business owners that I've talked to, they know they need to go out and speak to reach their target audience. They know that when they go out and speak, people see them and they're like, wow, I need to work with this person, right? So having somebody who's doing that work for them just takes that off their plate. They know a lot of times they know the events even they want to go to speak at, but they don't have the time to be,
Right.
flagging the call for speakers can be anywhere from like 3 months to 9 months before an event.
Mhm.
So, you have to be thinking, what am I doing 9 months from now? Or when is that event call for speakers coming up? Right. Like, so we create that list and then we're always looking at it. We're looking at what those deadlines are that we need to hit to get them into those events. And then that just takes it all off their plate where they don't have to worry about any of that. So, yeah. So where I have found that most of our clients so far has been either through that network or through referrals. Like people, once I started putting into the world that this was what I was doing, people that I'd worked with over the last 10, 15 years of my life were like, you should talk to Kelly. You should reach out to Kelly. And so I've gotten a lot of those coming my way as well. Just to add to your point earlier about that I had that experience that led to what I'm doing now. My sons are very interested in what they've seen me do in the last year. They're both, they're 16 and 18 and they're thinking about what they're going to do in the future and they think that entrepreneurship is a great path for them. So one of my boys, my 18-year-old, he asked me a few months ago, he's like, do you think you could be doing what you're doing now if you hadn't had your last job, if you hadn't worked for the person you worked for before? And I said, absolutely not. I think that experience is what set me up to hit the ground running. And if I hadn't done that and learned everything I'd learned over the last 17 years, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now. So I wanted
It
to
was
make
a
that point.
shortcut, right? Like, so I think society has built up this generation to believe that you just blink and really cool
Yeah.
things happen.
Yeah.
And for a very few people, yeah, that happens, right? You
Right.
become a social media influencer or you
Yeah.
start this business at 20 and, do great. But I agree with you so much. It's putting in the reps. It's
Right.
making sure that you know what you're talking about. And when this thing doesn't look exactly like that thing, you can pin it. It's just powerful. What a cool story of resilience, of malleability, of recognizing that when you have certain unique genius talents, you called it something, the authority X factor.
Yes.
Yeah, when you have that authority X factor, you all of a sudden can take all of that and put it into something others can have. I think that's brilliant. So, what advice would you have for the leaders listening to take the risk on yourself and to do what you did? Maybe not in this space, but in whatever space they're in.
Yeah. So a few years ago, maybe 3, 4 years ago, I read the book. Oh my goodness. Personality Isn't Permanent by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And it was reading that book. He talks a lot about trauma in the book. And the whole time I was reading it, I was like, I don't know what trauma I have had in my life that's holding me back. But the only thing I kept thinking was, what holds me back in my career, or what might hold me back. I mean, this was 3, 4 years ago. So I was thinking about like what might be holding me back from the next stage in my career. I mean, here I had no idea I was going to lose my job 3 years later. But, I was thinking about just, growth and always being open to learning and growing. And I kept thinking the one thing that's holding me back is my fear of public speaking.
Mhm.
I have a Now I know people do not believe me when I say this, but I have a huge, huge, almost debilitating fear of public speaking.
Really?
Yes. And people do not believe me, but literally I want to crawl under a rock when it's time to go
Huh.
and be in front of people. I used to not even be able to do podcast interviews because not that I couldn't do them, I would do them, but I would be shaking. It was
Oh.
so uncomfortable for me. And and my mom, when I started this business, my mom was like, "Do you remember when you like hyperventilated in the sixth grade when you were supposed to get in front of the class and give a talk?" I'm like, "Oh yes, I remember very, very well." It is debilitating, I swear. But it was reading that book that I was like, I need to figure out how to get more comfortable being in front of people.
Mm.
And so I started recording videos. I started doing TikTok videos and just talking about, at this time, I was still in the stage of kind of working with authors as a side hobby, I call it. I wasn't actually making any money. So like side hobby, not a hustle.
A gift. We're
Um,
giving a gift.
yes. But I had always done that. I had always done this author coaching on the side. And so I started, rather than just blogging my thoughts or what I wanted to teach people, I started recording videos and I started putting them on TikTok. And I started recording book reviews, video book reviews, and sharing those on my blog and sharing those on LinkedIn. And I had people in my life who were like, "Why are you doing that?" And I was like, "I don't know, but like I feel this need to start creating this type of content to get more comfortable with it. It feels really awkward and I want to get over that feeling." And so I started doing that. And thank goodness I did, because when I lost my job, one of the first things I started doing was podcasting. I started doing my own podcast, being a guest on podcasts. That helps me develop content for my audience. And then I also was like, I can't be the person telling people that speaking is the way to build their business without doing the same thing, right? I have to do this
Yeah.
in order to practice what I'm preaching. And so I started applying to speak. And what is this? So, in 10 months or so, I've gotten 4 speaking events that I've booked for myself and just forcing myself to do it. Like, you just have to go out there and do it. Like, so those things that you're telling yourself, I can't do that. I'm not good at that. I don't like to be on video, whatever, like just start pushing through your fear and forcing yourself to do things that you're uncomfortable with, because you never know what it's going to lead to in the future.
It's like all the stars aligned, right? You had this series of events. I'm not going to call them unfortunate ones because I really
Right.
don't think they were. They were fortunate events that led you to be ready for that trigger to pull. And you now are launching yourself into the next phase, and it is beautiful. How cool. So, I would call that productive joy. But I want to know what you call productive joy. So if you had to define productive joy, what does that mean to you?
Hmm. I mentioned the side hobby that I had of for 15 years. I was blogging. I was doing social media posting around author stuff. It's kind of started that when I was working in the publishing space. And so I was doing it more so for myself, to learn the platforms, to learn what worked well for people. It wasn't so much about what I was teaching on them, but it was more of like, what do people want on these platforms? And so I was doing that. And then over, I don't know, a few years ago, I started developing some guides for authors that I started putting on my website, and I was doing all that blogging on the weekend. And to me, that was productive joy. If I look back now, I know I was not being fulfilled in my job and I needed a creative outlet outside of my job to play. And so to me, that was productive joy. Like, I was finding my joy in something outside of my work that was lighting me up.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think I was even aware that I wasn't being fulfilled in my job. I just knew I just had this draw to do that creative stuff on the side.
That's really cool. And that's different. I always get different definitions. That's why I always ask the question, because everybody's definition of productive joy is different. And that's by design, right? Like we each our lights get lit up, let's say it that way, by different things. I think it's really cool that you recognize now, in hindsight, that you weren't being fulfilled in your job, because productive joy doesn't mean that it's happening at work necessarily. It could, but it became your work. I think that's the part that I think is really cool, that you weren't experiencing it in the role that you were in, but you opened your eyes and recognized that this could be something you could really do. I guarantee you there are listeners listening right now going, I want that. I want that. I want to go from having to do productive joy on the side to living productive joy every single day. So, if somebody is thinking that right this minute, what would you whisper in their ear?
I think it's to listen to yourself, right? Like I had another moment, another side story, but I took my team when I was director of marketing. I built a team. I took my team to this marketing conference, and I was sitting at this conference going, every single session I went to, I was like, I could have taught this session. I could have been doing right. And it was that moment for me that I realized that I had stuff to teach. I had experience of, whatever it was at that time, 15, 20 years of my career. I had all of these experiences that I was ready to teach people how to do things, right? I realized I had gotten to a level in my work where I knew what I was doing. I knew how to build a thought leadership platform or how to, the things that we were doing in marketing. And if I hadn't listened to that, I never would have pursued the things that I did, right? And all of that led to this path that I didn't know was coming. But I think it was like listening to that internal pull. I actually just talked to this woman earlier this week who said the same thing to me. Like she's horrified to be on video and to
Mhm.
go out and speak. It scares her. But she was like, I just know I have so much to teach people. And I was like, that's what you got to listen to that. You have to listen to that and start taking the steps to I'm already kind of said this, but to taking those steps, regardless of your fear, you've got to fight through it and start doing the things that you're being called to do.
Well, and it's the, definition of irony, I think, that, in both cases, you and this lady, that the thing that you have to share requires you to overcome that fear, that putting yourself out there and not being sure how you'll be accepted. So for me, it's a little different. I love to be in front of
I
people.
know you
Like
do.
it just floats my boat. And I think because, so I was raised by an entertainer. My father actually had the longest running comedy show in Vegas in the 70s and 80s. So I grew up on stage and I know how to work a room. That is my comfort zone. Where my fear comes in is being perceived as not smart. I know that sounds really minimal, but that's not how I mean it. What I mean is, I was always the cheerleader. I was always the fun one, right? Like, yay, we're going to have fun. I don't want people to perceive that to be stupidity because I'm actually pretty smart too.
Yeah.
Right? And so my fear is coming across, or when somebody will say to me, "Oh, I just love your energy." I'm like, "Thanks, and I'm smart too." Right? Like there's that little voice in the back of my head that is constantly telling me, "Yeah, but that's not enough. That's not enough." And so pushing past that for me is really where I had to, and still am working to come to grips with things. And I think that's what's cool about you, Kelly, is that you're helping people get that authority X factor out there. And you're using yours to leverage theirs so that they might have to push past something, right? But
Yeah.
they can get there and they can be really, really successful. That is amazing. And then you found this beautiful team. So I'm gonna pivot a little in direction because in the last year, you've had to hire 10 people who I'm sure are working remotely and are doing things that you're good at, but you had to trust that they were good at it. So, what advice would you have for those of us that are in that phase of life where we're having to trust others with something we have owned?
Yeah, I'm still learning that one, but the first thing is I hired a couple people I knew already. So that part was easy, right? Because I knew what they were good at. I knew what they could do. I knew where their skills complemented mine and, how I could best utilize them. And then one of them happened to know some other people. And then, so, we haven't hired anyone where we
Old.
didn't already know them
Yeah.
in some way, and that I'm a little scared about that stage because you're taking a big step in bringing somebody on where you really don't know.
Yeah.
It's not just about their skills or their experience. It's also about people can look great on paper, but they don't perform the way that you think they're going to, right?
Well,
So
they
yeah,
don't fit in your culture, which is worse, right? Like they may perform beautifully, but if they mess everything else up, that's not okay.
yeah, so we're not there yet. But the other piece of it is I'm still, working through this. I'm really good at certain things, and I have been lucky. I recently brought on an account manager on the team who does certain things way better than me. And so that has been awesome because I can like let go of any concerns with the clients that he's working with because I know he's on it, right? Like I know he cares, he's going to make everything look good, he's going to try really hard, all of that's great. But I'm kind of just lucky in the fact that he was a friend of somebody else on the team and that it just worked out, but yeah, I think some of it is you just have to start giving up. I think one of the things I see a lot of solopreneurs do is they just don't think anyone can do things the way that they can. And the reality is we're all good at certain things, but not everything.
Mhm.
And, like I know I'm great at working with the clients and building the relationships and whatever. I am terrible at like the follow up. So I bring a team member on every call because I'm like, you're the one following up on this. Like, I am not going to be.
Not
I'm going to
me.
go right on to the next thing. Right?
That's me. I like to come in and be that shot of B12 and then leave.
Yeah.
Bye, have fun.
Yeah. So you have to hire those people though that complement your skill set,
Yes.
right? Like so be aware of what you're not good at and bring people in who can help you with those things. And really when you find those people, they will help round things out and make things so much better
Yeah.
because you're not good at everything.
You're not
Uh
supposed to be. Well, and I heard diversity of thought, higher diversity of thought,
yes.
and people who complement your talents, but also to leverage your relationships. That's really what you've done. You've built a network of people who you can vouch for because you've seen them work. And I think we underestimate that sometimes. It's kind of like, so I've spent most of my career in education, and when a principal leaves a school, so does all, or so do all of their best teachers, because you follow great leaders. And that's what you have done is you have managed to bring those fabulous humans with you, which I think is a real testament to you, Kelly, and your abilities. So that's well done.
Well, thank you. Every stage of this is a learning process and we just keep
Amen.
the same.
Twice, right? Like all of that for sure. So I know I could just keep talking to you, but I also know people would stop listening and we don't want that. So I do well, before I ask my rapid fire questions, I want people to be able to find you. So, Kelly, what's the best way for people to go, okay, I am ready and I need speaking engagements or I need podcast appearances or I need fill in the blank?
Yeah. So 2milehighmarketing.com is my website. And right at the top, when you come onto the website, is a thought leader scorecard. So if you are the kind of person who's like, I'm thinking about it, or even if you're like, I'm a thought leader, like I know my stuff. Either way, the scorecard, it's a 3-minute quiz. You walk through it and it will help you, it'll tell you where you stand as a thought leader and then also give you some practical things to work on, things that you can do to help develop your platform even further.
Oh, I can't wait to take it. That's exciting. All right. Well, I know what I'm going to be doing in a little bit. Okay. I need to ask you some rapid fire questions. Are you excited?
I
That,
am
that,
excited.
that was
Let's
not
go
one
for
of
it.
the questions. Okay. Here we go. So what is your definition of fun?
Oh man, I've told you my business story over this last year. My fun is relative right now because my fun on the weekend is like getting caught up on work. But also I live in Colorado in the mountains, so fun is a lot of things. I mean, we love to go. This past weekend we were at Copper Mountain. They had an outdoor concert, and this next weekend we're going to Vail Oktoberfest. So, just getting out and doing some things, forcing myself to get away from work. Maybe I should say that. That's
Well, but I heard something I think that it's important. It is fun to clear your plate, right? It is fun to not have these things looming over you. Because if you do try to step out and do something when everything is looming, you're not really in either place. So I think all of that is fun as well. How do you know that you are showing up as your authentic self?
I think for me, one of the things I said to a friend early on in this starting this business was like, I feel like myself for the first time ever in my career. And so that, I mean, I just feel like finally doing this. I never felt a call to be an entrepreneur, but it was the taking that step. I was like, oh, I get to be myself, not what my boss says I should be, or what the corporate world says I should be, or whatever. Like I get to design my schedule and decide, I just I I feel like, and I have good days and bad days. I mean, there are days where I'm like, why am I doing this? But for the most part, it's just being able to be authentically myself in my job every day and get to show up as the person that I truly am and not what anyone else is making me feel like I need to be.
Mm. And it sounds like because you were the person behind the person, you spent a lot of time doing that and morphing into somebody else. So, congratulations.
Thank you.
How do you channel your best self on your worst days?
Oh, that's a great question because I mentioned there are good days and bad days. I would say it's not the best answer. I'm going to be honest, though. There are just
I like honest.
times where sometimes, like at the end of the day, I might just scroll on TikTok for a very long time. And I'm not a TV watcher, so I don't really escape through like watching TV or whatever. And my husband is hard on me about that because he's like, "Why aren't you just looking at your phone?" Right? But sometimes I'm like, I need this downtime. It's like mindless. I have to find these mindless things to just get away from it,
Yeah.
and then I can come back fresh. And I know it may not be the healthiest way to do it, but that's what I do.
But you figured out what works. So that's okay. All right, last question, tough question, because all of the things that you've said have had nuggets of wisdom in them. But by nature, people can only hold on to one major idea in 30 minutes. So, what's the major idea that you want to leave people with today, Kelly?
I think it is that idea that personality isn't permanent. If you haven't read that book, read that book. And if you are feeling the calling to do something different, if you're not happy in your job, or you're just feeling like there's something else out there, there's something more for me, start figuring out how to take those steps to get there because it's time.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, friends, you just got a master class in so many things, not just one thing, but I think you need to reach out to 2 Mile High Marketing and let her know, let Kelly know, hey, I am ready. I'm ready. I'm going to take the scorecard, right? Like I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I do as a thought leader because every one of you is a thought leader. And you need to remember that what you have to say is uniquely yours and nobody will hear it if you don't say it. So much power, Kelly. Thank you so much for joining us today on Productive Joy.
Thanks, Christy.
All right. And for all of you, grab that nugget, whatever it might be, and figure out a way today to turn fun into action.